When the news first broke about Epstein's death, I was skeptical, shocked, but we all knew this was going to happen in some form or another. The way I ended off the first video when the breaking news happened, I said, if you went to any journalist and asked, do you think Epstein will make it to trial, they'd probably have said no, one way or another. Well, now something interesting is happening. I do have some big news updates. First, what may be the most surprising thing to me is that everybody believes Epstein was murdered. Okay, I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but I've got Paul Krugman, Nobel laureate, op-ed columnist for the New York Times, tweeting, if we were living in a paranoid fantasy universe, I would be very suspicious about the Epstein suicide, even about whether it was really suicide. And you know what? The Epstein case itself shows that we are kind of living in a paranoid fantasy universe. So let me help you here. Krugman didn't come out and overtly say it was a conspiracy. He said he definitely would think it was if these criteria were fulfilled, and those criteria were fulfilled. Basically, this is Krugman essentially saying Epstein was killed. Now here's another thing. Joe Scarborough of MSNBC tweeting, a guy who had information that would have destroyed rich and powerful men's lives ends up dead in his jail cell. How predictably Russian. Going on to say he reportedly tried to kill himself 2 weeks ago and is allowed to finish the job now. BS. Powerful Democratic and Republican figures breathing a huge sigh of relief, as well as a Harvard professor or two, and others. Now, in this, I want to make sure I clarify. A lot of people are saying he's accusing the Russians of doing it. No. Joe Scarborough is saying the Russians, it is like a trope that the Russians kill people who could upset the order. He's not saying Russians did it. He's saying it sounds like Russian mafioso, political corruption, right? At least that's my interpretation. I think the fair interpretation. But the most important thing I'm highlighting is not whether or not he thinks it's the Russians. It's that so far we have two high-profile, left-wing aligned individuals claiming it's a conspiracy. Check this out. Maggie Haberman of the New York Times tweeted, the Instagram reaction to Epstein's suicide from Lynn Patton, Trump-appointed regional director, see caption. Lynn Patton tweeted, Hillary. And right now, Clinton body count is trending in the US. Clinton's, Bill Clinton, and then for some reason, Trump body count. Because they're anti-Trump people who are also trying to claim he got off. Like, that Trump wanted this because Trump would be implicated. I don't care about your political leanings. What's shocking here is basically no one believing this was a suicide. Now let me stress, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. One of the things I hate about conspiracy theories is that when you jump the gun, you make the investigation impossible because regular people will tune you out and we're done. Start from square and move forward. Now, I want to go over some of the big breaking updates. The first big update before going back into the conspiracy stuff is the FBI is investigating Epstein's death in the Manhattan jail. We also have conflicting reports now, some saying he was taken off suicide watch. I want to stress a point I made earlier on Twitter. When I was 18, I got arrested for skateboarding. Skateboarding. It was a slap on the wrist. They were just being mean to me because they didn't like skateboarders. I was arrested. I was brought to a jail where they took my belt and my shoelaces. And I was like, why? Why did I had to unlace my shoes? That was annoying because I tie my shoes in a special way for skateboarding. I actually cut them and knot them. And then I had to take my belt off and I'm sitting there like, this sucks. And like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, they said, go home, kid. And that was basically the end of it. And they gave me back my shoelaces and my belt. When they arrested me for a slap on the wrist, kind of to annoy me, that's my interpretation, my laces were taken away. How did this guy, Epstein, pull this off? At what point, here's my question. I ask, Occam's razor. The simple solution tends to be the correct one. But at what point is the simple solution a powerful man who was trafficking young girls, or at least accused of it, who could potentially bring down other very, very powerful men, regardless of their political affiliation, was murdered? Like, when is that the simple solution? Because I gotta say, when we're seeing the left and the right, Ocasio-Cortez tweeting, we need answers now, and I'm kind of like, yup. Seems like a lot of people are upset. Now, according to a report from the Washington Post, Bill Barr is livid. They mention Attorney General William P. Barr, upon being informed of Epstein's death while in federal custody, was livid and determined to figure out exactly what happened, said a person familiar with his reaction. Epstein's lawyers did not immediately return messages seeking comment. A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, which brought the new case against Epstein, declined to comment. Epstein's case has attracted widespread attention. Yeah, we get all this. Okay, I've got so much to go through. I'm like, this will probably be a little bit short of a video because it's a breaking story. It's ongoing. Before we move forward, though, I want to talk about conspiracies. Go to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But of course, the best thing you can do, share this video. Look, man, YouTube is going to punish and derank me for talking about this, but you've got Paul Krugman, Joe Scarborough, Cenk Uygur on the left saying basically the same thing, like somebody had to have done something. And so am I, but you know YouTube won't treat me fairly. So if you like the video, please consider sharing it. But I want to highlight this post, and I want to talk about journalism, and then probably go over a few more details as to why Epstein's case was so significant, and the politicians he could have implicated and may have. Jake Hanrahan, a journalist, tweeted, "Took about 10 minutes for the liberal narrative to become, quote, anyone who doesn't believe Epstein simply killed himself is basically InfoWars. The guy was an egomaniac who saw himself as a god and had dirt on some of the most powerful people. How is it outrageous to think he was offed?" And he goes on to say, "I'm not a right-winger in any way, nor conservative. I just don't think questioning the Epstein death is unreasonable." Someone said, "I don't know why you're attributing this to liberals. My lib friends also think he was murdered." Jake response, "Liberal media is where I'm seeing this coming from this all. Also, your one liberal friend is probably not a good gauge." Well, here's what I would say. I agree to an extent with Jake. I am mostly seeing the left say, no conspiracies, and they're criticizing the right for saying, Clinton body count and things like that. While I think pointing the finger directly at the Clintons might be jumping the gun, I don't think it's unfair to question the circumstances. And let me stress, just because, here's the biggest problem I've had with a lot of journalists. Trump says something, they call him a liar. A government agency under Trump, something happens, and they say, whatever the government says must be true. I'm sorry. This is a federal prison, right? Doesn't that put it under Bill Barr's jurisdiction? Why is it all of a sudden we have so many people saying it's unfortunate? There are a lot of people on the left right now saying this is proof that our facilities, our prisons are corrupt and incompetent. And I'm like, well, hold on. It's reason to suggest that may be the case. But I think it's not unreasonable to ask, who wanted this guy dead? I mean, we're talking about one of the biggest scandals of our generation. He was supposed to be on suicide watch. NBC reported that he was. Take a look at this tweet from Michael Tracy. He said, "People in power love to propagate their own conspiracy theories and deny what they're propagating is a conspiracy theory. Then when ordinary people propose conspiracy theories to explain suspicious official behavior, they get dismissed as crank conspiracy theorists." Can I point out, Russiagate was insane. For years, they were saying Trump, Russia, Russia, Trump, Russia, Russia. And did it turn out to be true? No, it was nonsense. But when you have Epstein, who absolutely was going to be implicating some prominent people, including Democrats, perhaps there are some prominent people who are celebrating now that he's no longer among us. And perhaps there are some people who actually wanted this to happen. Now, here's another important point. A few weeks ago, when he was found in a cell, blue and unconscious or whatever, they never said officially that it was a suicide attempt. At least that's my understanding. Most of the reporting I saw said, actually, I think this was Vox.com saying this, they haven't concluded whether or not it was an attack by his cellmate, a fake attempt to try and transfer cells or prisons, or an actual attempt. In which case, someone may have tried to kill him. Take a look at this story from the Daily Wire. Jeffrey Epstein accuser names multiple Democrats in alleged sex ring. Ryan Saavedra reports yesterday. A woman who claims that convicted sex offender Epstein was and socialite Ghislaine Maxwell kept her as a sex slave says that the two trafficked her to multiple high-powered individuals, including multiple Democrats. The discovery came on Friday. So this is what? Yesterday, this news breaks? Overnight, Epstein is dead. They say the papers included affidavits and depositions of key witnesses in the lawsuit. The now 33-year-old woman, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, sorry, I can't pronounce that right, filed against Epstein and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, in 2015. Fox News noted that two of the men listed were prominent Democratic politicians, former Senator George Mitchell and ex-New Mexico governor and Clinton cabinet official Bill Richardson. Epstein's ties to powerful Democrats include strong connections to former President Bill Clinton, who is an accused rapist. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to play a game of partisanship. There are accusations across the board. There are people claiming there are photos of Trump and Epstein together. He has praised them. So whatever your stance is, just know we are going to see the left blaming Trump, the right blaming the Clintons, and I am not here to tell you what is true or isn't. I'm just trying to point these things out. But of course, I know this is a minefield of a story. I think it's fair to point out there are powerful people across the board, regardless of politics, who are looking at some serious damage to their lives, if not the end of their lives. Take a look at this story. Hillary, conspiracy theories erupt after Jeffrey Epstein's death. Now, this is from the Daily Beast and Kelly Weil, who I find to be lacking credibility. She's written stories in the past that had no sources, that are seemingly made up or just her pretending she knows what she's talking about. But but I think it's still fair to highlight the story where she points out that the conspiracies are bipartisan. Hillary Lynn Patton, a Trump-appointed head of public housing in New York and New Jersey, posted on Instagram shortly after Epstein was reported dead. P.S. Let me know when I'm supposed to feel badly about this. Patton concluded the post with a hashtag alluding to a right-wing conspiracy theory that falsely claims the Clinton family orchestrated the death of a former White House counsel. Patton was far from the only social media user to implicate the Clintons. There were a lot. Now, here's the thing. Prince Andrew was named in court documents unsealed Friday. Listen, that was what, yesterday? What is today? Today's Saturday. This was yesterday that high-profile individuals are being named. Check this out. Prince Andrew was named in court documents unsealed Friday from an alleged Epstein victim who claimed he trafficked her to wealthy men, including Prince Andrew, lawyer Alan Dershowitz, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, Wall Street billionaire Glenn Dubin, and foreign heads of state. The men deny these allegations. Former President Bill Clinton was not named, although he has been linked to Epstein. Clinton took trips on Epstein's plane in 2002 and 2003, and Epstein visited the Clinton White House, the Daily Beast previously reported. The conspiratorial posts were not limited to the right. Epstein is also a former Trump associate and was filmed discussing women with Trump at a party. The woman who accused Epstein of trafficking her at age 16 said she had been working at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort when Epstein recruited her. Claire McCaskill, a former Democratic senator from Missouri, appeared to imply foul play with a Saturday morning tweet. Something stinks to high heaven, McCaskill wrote. How does someone on suicide watch hang himself with no intervention? Impossible unless... Claire McCaskill is saying this. Okay, you know what? I think we're now into conspiracies fair game territory. And I'm only going to say that because we've got Joe Scarborough, Paul Krugman, Claire McCaskill. It's fair now at this point, right? I think it's fair to say Occam's razor would suggest a powerful man who was about to bring down a ton of powerful people who in unsealed court documents just the other day implicated a ton of very powerful people. The simple solution is somebody didn't want him to talk. Think about it this way. One of the things I said, earlier today was that Occam's razor suggests this a billionaire who's now living in squalor. He's upset. His life is over. So yeah, it's possible. And I still believe that. But also consider, what if he was living in squalor, he is upset, and a Fed comes in and says, how would you like to be released under house arrest? Spill the beans. Or the fear that he would. Joe Scarborough, an MSNBC host and former Republican congressman, appeared to blame Russian interference. See, this is the thing about good faith, bad faith, and trying to understand what people really mean. When Scarborough said it sounded predictably Russian, it sounds like he's this is what Russians do. People in Russian prisons mysteriously die and get radiation poisoning. I don't think he's saying it's the Russians. He's saying it sounds very, he could have said mafioso. That would have been a better word. Epstein's death is under investigation, law enforcement told the Daily Beast on Saturday. So right now, there's, according to NBC, Epstein was in his own cell at the time of his death and was not on suicide watch. Multiple people familiar with the investigation tell the story's breaking. I can't tell you what is or isn't happening. I can't tell you if he was or wasn't on suicide watch. Previous reporting said he was. Now we have NBC saying he wasn't. But I think it was CBS still saying he was. I don't know. What I can say is talk about a scandal. And we've got mainstream politicians, personalities on the left calling this a conspiracy, or at least saying that may be the case. So there's a bit of other news for the most part. Let me read a little bit of this because there is a statement, and I'll read just a little bit of the Washington Post because I don't want to leave. I guess we're talking about the conspiracy here and the importance of it. So I'll say this: Clinton body count is trending. Bill Clinton is trending. Clinton is trending. These conspiracies are running wild. And you know what, man? I don't know what to tell you because this one definitely seems sketchy. Everyone seems to think so. So let me just give you a bit of the details we have so far, so I'm not just speculating and talking about conspiracy. They say that he was found unresponsive in his cell in the special housing unit of the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City about 6:30 a.m. Life-saving measures were initiated immediately by responding staff, who then requested aid from emergency medical services. Epstein was transported to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead, the Bureau said. ABC News first reported the incident, said that Epstein had hanged himself. Look, this is the news cycle. This is it. So with updates, I will have more segments coming up. YouTube.com/TimCastNews starting at 6 p.m. And I'm going to be tracking this one because I am like anti-conspiracy theory. I think we should always ignore the conclusions and start with the facts. But I don't know what to tell you when Paul Krugman says, when Claire McCaskill says, kinda, when Joe Scarborough says, well, yeah, I think most people are going to say, this dude got offed. Stick around. I will see you in the next segment with potentially more updates, and I will see you there.